No American can ever again take for granted his or her freedom.
This is the Alice Stewart Show on 96.5 The Voice.
Only in America.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. 6:06 here in Central Arkansas. The sun is coming up. A lot of scandals to talk about, not just here in Arkansas, but in D.C. We will do a follow-up on the Martha Schaffner Piegate story. She is going to be, some of the statements she has made that's going to undergo some scrutiny that will occur today. And in D.C., where do you begin? We have the IRS targeting conservatives. You have the DOJ spying on reporters. Now we have the government listening in on Verizon phone calls. And we have Benghazi whistleblowers being silenced. So we're going to dive right into the big scandal that many people are concerned with is the IRS and singling out conservatives. And I'm joined this morning with Patrick Howley with the Daily Caller. Patrick, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I'm glad you could join us. You have a piece that's on the website this morning dealing with the IRS and the new head, Danny Werfel. And let me just say this. I was encouraged about him earlier in the week when he testified. He's the new acting IRS commissioner, and he acknowledged gross mismanagement, lack of trust, and his responsibility to restore the trust. And then yesterday, evidently, he read the Star Trek playbook, and that's not how you're supposed to answer questions. And he said, I don't know quite a bit.
Yeah, he said that he's only been at the agency 2 weeks, so basically he doesn't know anything. I was never really encouraged by him. He kind of reminds me of a 12-year-old boy or something. You watch him testifying before Congress, and he seems like Dudley Do-Right or something, promising we're going to get on top of this. And he's not exactly a dynamic figure or an inspiring figure, but he's who the Obama administration picked to be acting commissioner.
Well, we have him and Mr. Fink, the Star Trek star, so I guess pick your pleasure. Well, and one of the main questions that we needed to get out of him yesterday, one of many, dealt specifically with Sarah Hall Ingram, and she was the former head of the tax-exempt group that's now one of the many Obama administration officials who's got a promotion. She now oversees the implementation of Obamacare, but as the Daily Callers reported, she's received over $100,000 in bonuses. And when that question was posed yesterday to Werfel, he gave his new standard answer, I don't know. How can that be?
Well, obviously he doesn't read the Daily Caller, so I took that as a personal slight. I like how he says, we don't have he said something to the effect that we don't have the resources to figure out how many bonuses she received, and I don't have the right staff with me right now to investigate this. And, it was widely reported on the Internet and in print as well, so I'm not exactly sure what he's been doing, but, he can't figure that out.
Well, and you would think all of those who go and testify before some of these hearings, they have their own internal documents, and they have their own research team, and they have their own assistants who can dig up this information, but apparently the administration's standard operating procedure is wait until they see it, and I assume the New York Times are not getting it from the Daily Caller, but just in your one story that was posted last night, I see, I don't know, I'll get you the information, I don't have the right staff, I'm not aware of that, I don't have the complete review right now. I mean, how is it they continuously get away with these type of non-answers?
Well, saying that you don't know or saying that you don't recall, I think is technically a good way to get away with things. Obviously, Bill Clinton, had one of the worst memories in history when he was testifying, and Alberto Gonzales, who worked in the Bush administration as well, said, I don't remember, I don't recall, hundreds of times when they called him to testify about Iraq. But, so I think they look at that precedent and realize that if you just say you don't remember, then it's not technically a lie. And I think legally that holds up.
Right, but it just doesn't pass the smell test with the American people. And then when we see the gross mismanagement of our taxpayer dollars by the IRS with these Star Trek videos and these swag bags of gifts, it's a tremendous lack of trust, and it's discouraging for taxpayers. But one of the many other questions I want to ask you about, my guest is Patrick Howley with the Daily Caller, and you can read his work on the dailycaller.com. It's a great insight into all these scandals going on in Washington. But Patrick, one of the questions we've seen over and over and over, and we continue to get the I don't know answer in regard to this IRS question situation, is so many of the administration officials and Democrats want to say this is isolated to Cincinnati, a bunch of frat boys in the IRS office in Cincinnati that targeted conservative groups, and they want to indicate it doesn't go any higher than that. But you reported yesterday that we now have evidence that it goes to D.C. A Washington IRS attorney, Carter Hall, closely oversaw the targeting of these groups. That's a significant find.
Yeah, well, the New York Times, I think, did one of the most shameful things ever. As soon as this broke, they tried to write the definitive scandal on all of it, and they talked about how the Cincinnati IRS office was underfunded and understaffed and, completely isolated from IRS culture. And, they made it sound like it was WKRP in Cincinnati, like it was a sitcom or something. They even had a line in there saying, these were third rail IRS employees in a backwater IRS office, and a bunch of underdogs, and it's really kind of shameful because first of all we found out that not only was it the Cincinnati office, it was 5 different offices, including Baltimore, including Chicago, 2 offices in California that were targeting people, and now we know that they were coordinating with an IRS lawyer out of Washington, and it doesn't stop with him. He's a 72-year-old guy who I'm sure was following orders himself. So
right,
it will keep going up.
Right. Well, that would just add to the storyline here. We have Lois Lerner who pleads her case and pleads the fifth, and then along with the WKRP storyline, we'll have Lonnie Anderson come out and do her famous Lonnie Anderson line. Anyway, I want to ask you one more question, Patrick. Patrick Howley with the Daily Caller. As I said, we had Lois Lerner who's pled her case and pled the fifth, and we have all these IRS officials that, Sarah Hall Ingram getting promoted, and this is the frightening thing, overseeing Obamacare. In my opinion, we don't need to see more training of these people. We need to see firings. We need to see new people in here. We need to, in my view, do away with the IRS. But at this point, what do you think the likelihood of getting some real change here, firing the people responsible and getting some true leadership, responsible people that will be responsible stewards of our tax dollars in the IRS?
Geez, well, who even knows what? A couple of IRS officials have resigned already, but who cares about that? What does that mean? I think ultimately, regardless of whether you're a liberal or a conservative or a Democrat or a Republican, I don't want to live in a country where the presidential administration is, engaging in this kind of conduct where I don't know if they're looking into me or auditing me or anything like that. I mean, this was what was wrong with Nixon, and he was denounced by Republicans and Democrats alike. So, these mainstream media outlets like the New York Times feel like it's their responsibility to defend the administration. But, my question to them is just, regardless of how you feel politically about Obama's policies, you need to send the message that what he's doing is unconstitutional and it's not okay.
Absolutely. And the American people are getting tired of the plausible deniability and the lack of answers. But I know you'll stay on it and you'll get to the bottom of it, and look forward to having you back on. Patrick Howley with the Daily Caller. Patrick, thank you.
Oh, thank you.